Welcome to the Wife Stories YouTube channel. New video every day, and don't forget to subscribe. Here we go. I found out that my wife is cheating on me. And so far, she and Josh don't know that I know. Josh, by the way, is or was my best friend. I know, it is a cliche, but cliches become cliches because they happen so often. I had no idea how to handle the situation. I couldn't comprehend why he was being intimate with my wife. Don't misunderstand. My wife is quite attractive in her mid-30s, and even after 3 kids, she looks striking in a bikini. But his wife, Carla, is equally stunning, if not more so. Carla stands tall at 5'7", with red hair that cascades to the middle of her back and green eyes that appear to peer into your very soul. I learned her measurements are 36, 23, 34, and I can't deny she had an effect on me. I let things slide for a couple of weeks after finding out about Josh and Heather as I tried to make up my mind about what to do. I loved Heather and I wondered if there was some way to save our marriage. It didn't seem likely, but I couldn't know for sure until we talked. On Friday, I made up my mind to confront her. On Monday, why? The 2-day wait? Heather had gotten a call from a very sick friend who needed some help, and she had rushed off to help her. I knew without a doubt that if I called Josh to ask him if he wanted to play golf on Saturday, I'd get Carla, and she would tell me that Josh wasn't there and was off doing something over the weekend. My parents had taken the kids up to their cabin on the lake for the weekend, so no wife and no kids meant that I was going to spend a quiet weekend alone, and it could very well be the last quiet weekend I would ever have. On the way home, I stopped and got a case of beer, and I fully intended to see that all 24 bottles were empty by Sunday night. When I got home, I put on a pair of shorts and a t-shirt and went into the kitchen. Dinner that night was going to be simple. I opened a package of hot dogs and put them in a pan to boil, chopped up an onion, and got a can of baked beans out of the pantry. I dumped the beans in a pot and put it on a burner, then opened my second beer. I was searching the refrigerator for the mustard when the doorbell sounded. Upon opening the door, Carla stood before me. She donned a tank top, seemingly without undergarments, paired with short denim shorts and flip-flops. The outline of her form was noticeable through the fabric of her top, causing an immediate and intense reaction from me. "Are you doing anything important?" she asked, batching it, working on dinner, and drinking beer. "Mind if I join you?" "No, in the least. I could use the company," I said as I stepped aside and let her in. We walked to the kitchen, and she sat down at the table. I knew she didn't drink beer, so I opened a bottle of Merlot when I poured her a glass. "Dinner is nothing fancy," I said. "Hot dogs and baked beans. Pretty simple stuff I can do." Simple. The hot dogs were boiling and the beans were bubbling. So I turned off the heat and moved the pans to a cold side of the stove and got 2 plates from the cupboard. I handed Carla one and told her to help herself. She fixed herself 2 hot dogs and spooned some beans on her plate. We sat down to eat, and I asked, "What brings you over? You have any idea where Heather is?" "She went to help a sick friend." "I wonder when it happened." "When what happened?" "When Josh got sick. He seemed quite healthy to me when he left the house. You do know that Josh is involved with Heather, right? And that they are currently in room 130 at the Arrowhead Lodge." "I didn't know that they were at the Arrowhead, but I've known for a couple of weeks now that she has been cheating on me." "How did you find out?" "I discovered a piece of a prophylactic wrapper in his pants pocket while doing laundry. He doesn't use them with me because we've been attempting to conceive. I resolved not to have his child if he was unfaithful. I didn't want to risk becoming a single mother in the event of a separation. So I hired a private investigator with some inheritance from my father. They meet for extended lunches, and when he tells me he's working late, he's often spending time with Heather." "How did you learn about it?" "I was in the basement working on a bookcase I'm making. The phone rang, and I picked up the basement extension. Heather must have picked up the upstairs phone a second or so ahead of me, and I heard her say the word lover just as I put the phone to my ear. So I quietly listened while Josh told her they would have to skip their usual long lunch at the Marriott due to an important meeting he had to attend. I got to listen to her tell him that she would miss him and that he was going to have to work hard to make it up to her the next time." "You haven't done anything about it." "I haven't been able to make up my mind as to what to do." I did decide this afternoon to confront her when she gets home and see where it goes from there. What are you going to do? Hopefully, I'll be doing it in a few minutes. I gave her what must have seemed to her like a confused look and said, "Do what?" She got up, came over, and sat on my lap. "I've seen the way you look at me, and I know very well that if we weren't married, you would have pursued me. We might both still be married, but we don't owe Josh and Heather any more loyalty than they have shown us." She hugged me, and her hand slid up my leg beneath my shorts, reaching the edge of my underwear. I shifted to get more comfortable, and her hand moved beneath my underwear. I looked at her in amazement as she leaned in, and our lips met. She slipped her tongue into my mouth while her hand held me firmly. Caught up in the moment, I kissed her back, our tongues intertwining. She paused and said, "I'm aiming for the ultimate payback. Despite our decision to try for a baby, I've consistently found reasons to avoid intimacy during my fertile periods to be extra cautious. I visited my doctor and got a diaphragm." "How much do you want to get back at Josh?" "Why do you ask that?" "It is my ultimate revenge. I am at my peak fertility right now, and my contraceptive device is in my purse." Yummy. That is exactly what I mean. Carla was right. It would be the ultimate revenge to have Josh raising my child, believing it to be his own. I smiled and slid my hand under Carla's tank top, confirming my suspicion that she wasn't wearing a bra as I touched her. She responded with a moan. Her lips met mine with fervor as my other hand ventured under her shorts, revealing another layer she had foregone. I gently caressed her, eliciting a moan and a whispered, "Oh yes." As I continued breaking the kiss, I said, "On Heather's side of the bed." "That's where I want you, on Heather's side of the bed." She got off my lap and said, "Let's go." We both quickly disrobed when we reached the bedroom, and Carla's unclothed form was stunning. She had a feature I had only seen in men's magazines. She was completely smooth. I've already noted that Heather was attractive, but I couldn't understand why Josh would be intimate with my wife when he had someone like Carla. Carla seemed to be pondering the same thing. She gazed at my bare figure with a quizzical expression, and when I inquired about her thoughts, she said, "I just don't understand it. You're more endowed than Josh, so why would Heather want to be intimate with my husband when she has you at home? It makes no sense to me." "Doesn't matter. You are here now, and for the time being, those other two people don't even exist. Take me to bed now." Heather gestured towards her side of the bed with a smile and suggested, "Let's spend time together on my side of the bed, and then we can go to my place and continue on Josh's side." "Deal," I said as she reclined on the bed. I positioned myself accordingly as she raised her legs, urging me to be with her passionately. "Can't do it. Not until I've had a taste." I kissed her smooth skin and continued until Carla cried out enough. "Make love to me." I advanced and pressed on, and our bodies joined intimately. "Oh, yes," she hissed. "Fill me, love her. Fill me and embrace me tightly." I did, as the lady requested. We were engaged in a passionate encounter filled with intense sounds that echoed off the walls. She pleaded with me to continue her words, fueling my desire. I was determined to satisfy her first as Carla reached her peak. I could no longer restrain myself. I reached the climax, releasing into her. We were both sweaty and gasping for breath when I withdrew and collapsed onto the bed beside her. Carla propped herself up on an elbow and gazed down at me. "I can't believe this. I just can't believe this. Heather can have this. And she wants my husband." Her hand reached for me and she began to caress me gently. I felt a twitch and Carla whispered, "Good boy, showing signs of life." And that's a good thing, because we ain't even close to being done yet. Love her. She moved down and began to caress me with her mouth. Her actions quickly revitalized my once dormant excitement. She then paused, shifted her position, and with a playful declaration of my turn to ride, she began to move rhythmically atop me. Carla and I reached a point of intense passion, and I shifted her position so that she lay on her back. Our connection deepened, and we shared a moment of peak intensity. As we rested afterwards, she said, "You weren't going to make me go home tonight, or you?" "Silly girl," I said as I pulled her to me. We fell asleep, wrapped around each other. I woke before Carla did in the morning, and as I lay there looking at her, I couldn't help but think that my actions with Josh's wife didn't make me any better than Heather. I could rationalize it by saying that Heather's infidelity released me from my vows. She did so I could write. What's good for one is good for the other, right? Turnabout is fair play, right? But for me, the bottom line was that I had been unfaithful to my marriage. I couldn't claim the moral high ground when I confronted Heather. True, she didn't know what I had done, but I knew. I hadn't noticed that Carla was awake until she said, "You look deep in thought. What are you thinking?" I told her, and she said, "I made the same promises you did when I married Josh. So I guess that makes me unfaithful too. But I don't see it that way. Josh made the same vows as I did, and then he broke them to me. That meant we had a contract. And if we were dealing in law, if I remember correctly from my business law classes, Josh would be in breach of contract, and the contract could be declared null and void. I know marriages aren't handled that way, but it doesn't change the fact that Josh and I had a contract, and he broke that contract with me. That means, at least to me, that I no longer have to honor that contract unless I choose to. You need to look at your marriage the same way you aren't being unfaithful. You are only doing what her breach of her contract with you has freed you up to do. Enough of this talk. Take me out and feed me, and then we need to go to my place and reclaim Josh's side of the bed and work on starting a family. Her hand began to glide down my body, and as it reached my lower abdomen, I could feel a growing excitement. We became passionately involved, and if she wasn't expecting, by the time we fell asleep at her place, it certainly wasn't due to a lack of effort. However, I doubt the final attempts were fruitful, as it seemed nothing substantial resulted. In the morning, she inquired about the time the kids would return, and I informed her they would be home around 6. She served me steak and eggs for breakfast, suggesting I would need my energy for the day's activities. We called it quits around 4 so I could head home and be there in case my parents got there earlier than expected before I went home. Carl asked me if I had made up my mind as to what I was going to do, and I admitted that I hadn't. Are you a good enough actor to pretend that everything is fine? I don't know why, because, in my opinion, the best retaliation is for us to continue what we spent the weekend doing. I want to keep at it until I'm pregnant. Also, you need to consider your children. A divorce will limit your access to them, because around here the courts always award custody to the mother. You might only see them every other weekend, and that's if Heather isn't too upset with you to find some reason to prevent the visit. My advice would be to tolerate her life as usual, except that you and I would be passionately involved whenever possible. I don't know about that, Carla. Sooner or later, cheaters will get caught. If they catch us, it reduces our chance to hold the high ground in any talks we have. They got caught because of careless mistakes. You discovered Heather's secret because they foolishly used the landlines to talk. I learned about it because Josh was so negligent. He brought proof home in his pocket. We won't risk that. We will buy a couple of prepaid phones from Walmart and use them to communicate to prevent our spouses from finding them. We will store them in our work desks. We will coordinate our meetings to coincide with theirs. No, we won't be able to do that. If Heather calls and says she has to work late, I'll have to babysit. And if they are doing it on their lunch hours, we won't be able to. Because I can only rarely take long lunches. You can sometimes work late, can't you? When you do, she will need to be home to watch the kids. I play cards with some sorority sisters from college every Wednesday night, and sometimes I stop for drinks after work with my colleagues, and Josh is accustomed to that. Another thing we can do is put a tap on our phone lines so we will know what they're discussing. Are you interested? You've thought it all out, haven't you? Maybe I've missed something. But with both of us working together, I think we can cover all the bases. You are sure you want to do this? Absolutely sure. Like I told you in the beginning, I want revenge on Josh. I gave him everything I have, and he stabs me in the back. I spoiled that scoundrel rotten and was intimately generous with him 3 and 4 times a week, and he cheats on me. No way. I'm going to let it slide. My idea of the perfect revenge is to let him raise another man's kid. And what could be sweeter than having the husband of the woman he is cheating with be the father of that child? I understand the desire for revenge and the difficulty of accepting someone else raising my child. But I'm uncertain about pretending to be a loving husband to a wife who is unfaithful. You have an incentive, my love. I do. Over the last 48 hours, you seem to thoroughly enjoy what I provided. You can have as much as you want, whenever you want, and for as long as you want. You do know that's an incredibly hard offer to refuse. I certainly hope so. And there's more. Josh wants 2 children, a boy and a girl. And I want both to have the same father. It could be even better. What if the first 2 are both girls? I know he'll want a son. Are you willing to keep trying? I am. As long as we don't get caught, we will just have to make sure that that doesn't happen. Oh, and one last thing. Can you act natural around Josh? It will be difficult not to show a knowing smile, aware that I'll be doing my utmost to start a family with him. But I believe I can manage it. I think Tuesday will be my next night to stop after work with the girls. What a coincidence. I'll be working late on Tuesday. My folks dropped the kids off at 6:30 and told me they hadn't eaten yet, so I took them to Mickey D's. I wasn't surprised when they wanted Happy Meals. After we ate, we went home and found Heather there. She asked where we had been, and when I told her, she replied in a snippy tone, "Why didn't you call me and see if I wanted to go to dinner with you? You didn't tell me when you'd be back, and you didn't call my cell to let me know you had returned." I replied in the same sharp tone. She gave me a nasty look and then went to greet the children while Heather put the children to bed. I went online and researched how to tap a phone line using a voice-activated tape recorder. I decided to purchase 1 or 2 on my way home from work the next day. I'd buy 2 so I could tap not only my line, but also Josh's line. I'd have to call Carla to arrange it. I noticed Heather hadn't showered before coming to bed. She might have showered earlier, but perhaps she hadn't. And I wasn't interested in being intimate after someone else. I might have unknowingly accepted it before, but not this time. When Heather initiated, I claimed to have an upset stomach and suggested waiting until the next day. Monday at 3:20, my secretary informed me that Mrs. Carla Marvis wished to see me. I instructed Shelley to allow Carla to enter. Carla came in, closed the door behind her, and approached me to offer a greeting. "Too bad you have a secretary right outside your door. If she weren't there, I'd lock the door and we could share an intimate moment right here on your desk. If you can kill 10 minutes, she goes home at 3:30. Oh, wow, I was just kidding. But I can easily kill 10 minutes. She opened her purse and took out a cell phone and handed it to me and told me that she had already programmed her number into it. The plan for tomorrow is that at lunchtime I'm going to the Marriott to secure a room. I chose the Marriott because it requires going inside and down a hall to access the rooms, avoiding any external doors that might expose our entry. I'll call you with the room number. I'll leave work at 4:30 p.m. and head straight there. When you arrive, visit the bar and order a drink. If anyone recognizes you, they'll assume you stopped for a drink on your way home. After your drink, join me in the room where I will be waiting for you." Okay. Sounds like a plan to me. On the way home, I'm picking up what? We need to tap our phones. When would be a good time for me to come over and do it? It is already done. I went online and found out how to do it, and I already had a recorder that I could use. At that point, Shelley stuck her head in the door and said, "I'm leaving Mr. B and I'll see you in the morning." When the door closed, Carla got up to lock the door, and when she turned back to me, I already had my pants and briefs off and was clearing the desk. Carla laughed and said, eager, "I appreciate that quality in a man," she said as she subtly hinted at her readiness for intimacy. It was a swift, uncomplicated encounter, and we were both satisfied. As Carla was getting dressed, she said, "That will hold me till tomorrow. But you had better come to the room prepared for a long and energetic evening. Maybe you should load up on vitamins." I debated whether to clean myself before going home. If I became intimate with Heather that night, there was a mischievous part of me that found it intriguing to do so, with traces of Carla still present, likely dried by then. However, Heather often began with more intimate acts, and she might notice a different taste. Deciding it was better to be cautious, I headed for the men's room to freshen up. I stopped at Radio Shack on the way home and bought 2 recorders and 6 extra tapes. I got the second recorder so I could listen to the tapes in my office. I would save any tape that had something on it from the 2 lovers against the day I would be telling a judge why I wanted a divorce. Heather had dinner ready when I got home, and she had wine out, which was a good sign that she was in a romantic mood. And I wondered about that. She had spent the weekend with her lover, and she comes home wanting more. Was she developing an insatiable desire, or did she just enjoy being with her unsuspecting husband after being with her lover? Maybe someday I'd find out the answer to that one. Intimacy with Heather was always satisfying, and she was open to various experiences. She was skilled in providing pleasure, though not quite as adept as Carla, and she was open to different forms of intimacy. If Carla had been truthful and not merely flattering me when she mentioned my size compared to Josh's, I was curious about what Heather found lacking in me. Perhaps one day I would find out. When dinner was over, the kids were parked in front of the electronic babysitter, and we were doing the dishes. Heather said, "You do know that you have your work cut out for you tonight, right?" "Oh, and why is that?" "You have to make up for last night." "I'll do my best." "Your best is always spectacular, my love." I wanted to say, "Then why are you with Josh?" But I kept my mouth shut while Heather read to the children. I descended into the basement, located the phone line's entry point into the house, and installed a tap on the phone. Heather didn't leave for work until an hour after I did, and I surmised that was when she and Josh would engage in most of their conversations. I could be mistaken, though. Heather owned a cell phone, and they could potentially communicate using her work phone while she was at her job. I was betting that the call I had eavesdropped on indicated they conversed when she was at home. We were intimate 3 times that night, which was unusual for us. Typically, we engaged in such activities 3 or 4 times a week, but usually just once, though sometimes we did twice. Another curiosity to ponder, the alarm sounded just after we completed our 3rd round. We were lying beside each other when Heather said, "Have you given any thought to us having another child?" "Not really," I said, as I particularly didn't consider Josh's. "In fact, I've been considering getting a vasectomy, so you could stop taking birth control pills and we could still be safe." "Why wouldn't you want another?" "We had Mike and Anna so soon after our wedding that we never had a chance to go places and do things. As it sits now, we will still be young enough to do some things when Mike and Anna strike out on their own. More kids would prevent that. Besides, right now we need the income from your job. We would be pinched if you had to leave work because of a pregnancy." In my mind, I was thinking some really unpleasant thoughts. Heather and Carla talked, and I'm certain that Heather knew Carla and Josh had decided to try for a child. Did Heather want to have Josh's first child before Carla could? Was there something Heather held against Carla? Or was it simply Heather trying to assert her rights to her partner? Either way, it didn't make me feel like I could commit to Carla's plan. In my mind, I was going to have to end things with Heather pretty soon. Then I had a very, very bad thought were Mike and Anna even mine. I was going to have to find out. I fell into a very disturbed sleep the next afternoon after a tiring meeting in room 202 of the downtown Marriott. I shared my concerns with Carla. "I can't even make a wild guess as to what you should do," Carla said. "Confront her about Josh now before he can get her pregnant. Of course, she could already be expecting and is getting ready to tell you. I know what I'd do, but I'm not a man and I'm not you." "What would you do?" "I'd simply tell her that I don't want more children. So for safety, I'll start using protection until I can have a vasectomy. If she becomes pregnant, that's when I'd address the issue. I'd suggest we need a DNA test to determine if the child is mine or Josh's. That would likely surprise her. If I get a vasectomy, it will blow our revenge plan. Just don't agree until you ensure I'm expecting. It would be unfortunate because I really want all my children to share the same father. We might be fortunate. Perhaps Heather was merely gauging your interest in having another child, and your lack of enthusiasm might dissuade her. We'll never be certain unless she approaches you with the news that she's expecting." She looked at her watch and said, "We have time for a couple more chances for you to make me a mommy." I stopped on the way home to purchase protection, and that night, when Heather was intimate, I prepared to use it. "What's that for?" "I've decided to use them until I can get a vasectomy. I really don't want any more kids." "Well, take it off. I hate the feel of those things. I'll stay on the pill and use spermicide until I can get fitted for a diaphragm. That should keep us plenty safe." Hated the feel of them, I thought as I finished putting it on. Heather was inexperienced when we got married, and I had never used protection with her. When did she discover that she disliked the sensation? And with whom? Regardless, it just reinforced my decision to determine the paternity of my 2 children. Then I recalled that it was because of Josh using protection when he was with Heather that had tipped Carla off to the fact that Josh was unfaithful to her. I was still going to have the test done. I finished rolling it on and said, "Unless you already have the spermicide, I'll use the raincoats that I bought today." "I don't. But I'll get some tomorrow and make a doctor's appointment for the diaphragm." "I don't want you getting a vasectomy. I want to keep the option open in case you ever change your mind." I maintained protection position myself on the bed and engaged in an intimate act with her as her excitement peaked. She attempted to draw me closer, but I withdrew and proceeded with the act. She experienced pleasure swiftly, after which I deliberately guided her to another peak before accelerating and reaching my own climax. I remained close to her until I relaxed, then withdrew, dispose of the protection, and returned to find Heather asleep on her side. I figured that it was a good time to head down to the basement and check the recorder. A couple of junk calls, and then hello. "Good morning, sweetie. Miss me?" "Of course I do. We still on for lunch today?" "Yes, but I think our lunch meetings are about over, unless we can find some place where it won't cost so much. Those motel rooms are draining my family budget. I can't keep taking from it. Sooner or later, there won't be enough in it to feed my family. And I certainly don't want Barb asking why. I'll try to come up with something. Wednesday night is her card night. Have you figured out a way to get out of the house yet?" "Not yet, but I'm working on it. I'll cross my fingers. I need more of you than I get on a 45-minute lunch break. Me too, lover. Talk to you tomorrow." "Of course. Till then, bye, baby." I almost became sick when I realized that I had been intimate with Heather after she had been with Josh that afternoon, but I managed not to. I found it interesting that she was not only unfaithful to me, but she also had to pay for the room to do it in. I wondered how Carla would react when she heard that her husband referred to her with a derogatory term. The only thing I knew for sure as I climbed the steps out of the basement is that Heather would not be able to leave the house on Wednesday night. Tuesday, when I got to work, I took the track phone out of my desk drawer and called Carla. And when she answered, I said, "Good morning, jerk." "What? Who in the world is this?" "You have forgotten the voice of the father-to-be of your children already. And besides, who else has this number?" "Bob, why are you calling me an offensive name?" "Listen to this," I said as I held the recorder up to the phone and pressed play after the woman's card night had played. I said, "See, I have it on good authority that you are unfaithful. A husband knows these things about his wife, right? When the time comes, I'll eliminate the despicable person." I played the rest of the tape for her since she obviously hadn't checked the recorder that she had put on her home line. And after she listened to it, she asked me what I was going to do. "I think I'll have to work late on Wednesday, but I won't let her know until it's almost time for her to finish work. Hopefully, it will be too short notice for her to arrange a babysitter." Did you catch the part where Heather says she's paying for the room they meet in? Doesn't surprise me. Josh has always been cheap. I guess if you are going to work late, I'll skip my card night and we can get together. I'll call you tomorrow and set it up. Wednesday over breakfast, Heather asked me if I had plans for the evening, and when I said no, I asked why she wanted to know. "The girls from work have been talking about stopping after work to have a couple of drinks and socialize away from work. I can't do it unless you are here to watch the kids. Shouldn't be a problem." I kissed her goodbye and left for work. I then rented a room at the Marriott. Upon arriving at work, I called Carla and provided her with the room number. Heather finishes her job at 5, so around 440. I informed her that I would be working late. There are some problems with the Henderson contract and they have to be taken care of before Nathan goes to his meeting with them in the morning. Sorry for such short notice, but I really can't get out of it. I may be really late, so don't wait up for me. Love you. Bye. I was worn out after my time in room 333, and Heather was asleep when I arrived home. If she had been awake and in the mood, I doubt I would have had the energy for intimacy. For the next 5 weeks, Carla and I were able to get together on the average of twice a week, and it helped to always know ahead of time by way of the phone taps what Josh and Heather were up to. It was during that 5th week that Carla said, "Congratulations, Daddy. How about passionately embracing the mother of your child? How does Josh feel about it?" He doesn't know yet. I needed to tell the baby's father first. Then I can tell Josh. You know, I said the one thing we haven't done that they have is go off for a weekend together. I think we owe it to ourselves to have one to celebrate your pregnancy. We just need to do it without the two of them putting two and two together and coming up with the right answer. Funny that you should bring that up at this exact time. Josh has to fly to San Diego to handle some detail or other with his father's estate. He is going over this weekend so he can visit with some relatives before going to see the attorney on Monday. If you can come up with a way to get out for the weekend, we can go someplace and neither one would have any reason to think about it. I think I can do it. I got off the bed and got my cell phone and called my brother, who lived in Akron. When I got him, I asked him to call the house just after I left for work in the morning and to tell Heather that I need to come home for a family emergency of some type over the weekend. I told him I'd call him later and clue him in as to what was going on. He said he would take care of it, and we said goodbye. I turned to Carla and said, all that's left is to decide where we want to go. The next morning, Heather called me on my cell about 5 minutes after I left the house. You need to call Bill as soon as possible. There was a family emergency, and he needs to talk with you. I'll call him as soon as you hang up. I waited until I got to work and then called Bill. What's up? I explained the situation to him, and he assured me that I could rely on his help whenever I needed it. I trusted him because he despised unfaithful individuals. He was a single father because his wife had been unfaithful after she passed away in a car accident. He ended up raising the children alone. I called Carla and told her the setup, and we made arrangements to take off for the weekend. I got on the phone and called the Arrowhead Lodge and was even able to reserve room 130. Only fitting, I thought. At 2, I called Heather and told her that I was flying back to Akron. I'll stop by the house and pack a bag. My flight leaves at 8, and I need to get there at least a half hour early to check in. I hate to sound selfish, but I do hope that you aren't a match. I need you to have all your parts to ensure we make it all the way to old age together. Darn, Heather, the way you say that makes me think you might actually love me. There better not be any doubt in your mind about it, Buster. Not even a smidgen. If you only knew. I thought as I said goodbye and hung up the phone. When I arrived home, Heather was waiting for me in what she referred to as her alluring outfit. She was unclothed with only high heels on. Do you have time to give me something to tide me over until you return? Since I didn't need to rush to catch a non-existent flight, I said I had the time. Heather was lying on the bed, and as I dressed, she said on the phone, "You almost sounded like you doubted that I love you." Just kidding, babe. I know full well how much you love me. You show me just how much every time you are intimate with Josh. I don't want you to ever doubt it, lover. Not ever. The weekend with Carla was exhausting. Spend time together intimately and go to bed. Wake up in the morning, spend more intimate time, and then go to breakfast, return to the room, and continue our intimacy until lunchtime. Eat, and then return to the room for more intimate moments. Go out and sit by the pool for a while, then return to the room for intimacy. Go out to dinner, enjoy a few drinks and dance a little, and then return to the room for more intimate time. Repeat the next day, and then once more. When we woke up Monday morning, we promised each other that we would do it again, then headed home. Heather was at work when I got home, so I went to the basement and checked the recorder. The first call on Friday morning was Bill. A couple of minutes after she hung up on Bill, she got a call from Josh. You figure out a way to get loose for the weekend. I'd love to spend a couple of uninterrupted days with you. No, Josh, I haven't been able to think of a way. And the truth of the matter is that I don't want to come up with a way. What's the matter? Why not? The guilt over what I've been doing has finally caught up with me. I love Bob, and he deserves better than to have a cheating wife. The next time we got together, I was going to tell you that it was over. I need to devote myself to Bob. Oh, come on, Heather. You've been intimate with me for almost a year. How could you do that if you love him as much as you say? First, I need to correct something you just said. I've never been intimate with you in a loving way. I've had a physical relationship with you, but never made love with you. The only man I'm intimate with in that way is Bob. Nonsense, Heather. You never showered before we left the motel rooms. I keep a travel bag at work with all the essentials for personal hygiene. Bob has never detected even a hint of your presence. No, Josh, I'm ending this before we get discovered. I love Bob, and I don't want to lose him. Be content that you managed to sway me when I was inebriated at that first time. Maybe so. But you weren't drunk all the other times. Depends on what you mean by drunk. I was intoxicated with the excitement I got from being with Bob after you and I were intimate. I wanted to see if the thrill would be there if I was sober. So I let you and I be together a second time, and it was. That is the only reason I continued. We've managed to keep it a secret for a little over a year, but I've come to realize that the feeling I get from going to Bob after being with you isn't worth the risk of losing him if we got caught. Enjoy your time in California, Josh, and when you return, don't contact me. Goodbye. Interesting. I thought as I pulled the tape and inserted a fresh one, I unpacked and headed to work around 11. I called Carla, and when I said hi, she said, "Miss me already? You know it's attractive. I have something I want you to hear. If it is Friday's phone conversation, I've already heard it." It seems she came to her senses and recognized she could lose you. What's your plan? I'd already made up my mind to hang in there until the kids turned 18. I can't see anything that would make me change my mind. If she meant what she said to Josh, it will make it easier to stick it out. But the trust is gone. Even if she does break it off with Josh and they never get together again, how do I know that? Somewhere down the line, she won't start missing the thrill and excitement of cheating and hook up with some new guy you could always hit her with. If you're really through with Josh, maybe we can move on. But you get no second chance. No, I couldn't. That would give up the information that I have a tap on the phone. And like I said, the trust is gone. I'm going to need a way to keep track of what she is up to. Besides, she knows me, and she would know that if I knew, I would have shared it with you. She might tell that to Josh, and that might get him to thinking. And we don't want that. Is that your roundabout way of saying that we are going to keep on going? You heard the tape. They gotten away with it for a little over a year, and you and I have only been at it for a couple of months. They owe us another 10 or 12 months. And then, of course, there are the penalties and interest that could make it even longer. Carla and I continued to meet about twice a week until her 7th month. She was willing to continue, but she was so large with the babies that I was concerned I might hurt her. That's right, babies. The ultrasound revealed that Carla was expecting twins. She gave birth to 2 beautiful little girls. True to her prediction, Josh wanted a son. So 2 years after the birth of the twins, I got her pregnant again. And this time the ultrasound said it was a boy. We made love until her 8th month, and then we called it quits. We both felt that we had gotten away with it long enough, and to get caught at that point would turn Carla into a single mom with 3 kids to raise, and neither of us wanted that. As Carla put it on our last time together, the aim was to exact revenge on the unfaithful scoundrel by making him raise another man's children. I must remain married to him for this to occur. Josh received a promotion that required him to move, and I haven't seen or talked to Carla since they moved. However, I do think of her often and fondly. It has been 6 years now, and as far as I know, at least according to the telephone tab, Heather hasn't become involved with anyone else. However, she and Josh had managed to conceal their affair for over a year before I discovered it, and I was completely unaware. She might have become savvy enough to stop using the home phone for such matters, but I monitor her closely, and so far, I haven't seen any indication that she is being unfaithful. She has been trying her hardest to pamper me, and I'm reconsidering my plan to leave when the kids turn 18. That's 4 more years for Mike and 5 for Anna. I'll just have to wait and see.